The message arrived during breakfast across Earth. Every screen, every device, every communication channel suddenly displayed the same image. A being of pale blue skin and 4 graceful arms, wearing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. High Arbiter Thelma spoke in a voice that carried the weight of 3 million years of civilization. People of Earth, we welcome you to the greater community. We are the Ascendants, and we have guided this galaxy since before your ancestors walked upright. We mean you no harm. We wish only to help you grow. Lyra Okoye watched the broadcast from her apartment in Lagos. As Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Galactic Assembly, she had met Thelmus before. The ancient being had treated her with kindness, the way a teacher treats a bright but naive student. She found it both comforting and infuriating. Her phone rang. David Walsh, commander of Earth Defense Force, appeared on the screen. His face looked tired. You seeing this? Everyone's seeing it, Lyra replied. What's the real message? Read between the lines. They're telling us to slow down. Stop expanding. Stay in our little corner and be grateful. Lyra frowned. They haven't said that explicitly. Not yet. But I've been reading the reports from our colonies. The Ascendants have been visiting them, asking questions, taking notes. They're studying us like we're lab animals. 3 weeks later, Lyra stood in the Galactic Assembly Hall, a structure so vast that clouds formed near its ceiling. Thousands of species filled the chamber, most of them humanoid, all of them watching humanity's first official address. She felt small. Earth had been traveling among the stars for only 15 years. These beings had been doing it for millennia. Thelmus floated above the assembly on a platform of light. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of welcome. Ambassador Okoye, we are pleased to hear from our youngest members. Please share your people's intentions. Lyra took a breath. Thank you, High Arbiter. Earth seeks only peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity. We've established 23 colonies in the Outer Reach sector. We're exploring, learning, growing. We hope to contribute to this great community. A murmur ran through the assembly. Thelmus's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. The Outer Reach. Ambassador, that region is designated as restricted. The stellar radiation, the gravitational anomalies, the unstable planets. No civilized species would settle there. With respect, our people are already there. They're thriving. Thriving? Another being spoke up, a senator named Quintar. He looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard, covered in green feathers. Ambassador, we've reviewed your colony reports. Your people live on worlds with gravity that would crush our bones, temperatures that would boil our blood, atmospheres filled with poison. You call this thriving? Lyra felt anger rising but kept her voice steady. What you call poison, we call oxygen. What you call crushing, we call home. Earth isn't like your worlds. We evolved differently. Thelmus raised one hand and silence fell instantly. Young Ambassador, we understand. Your species developed on a difficult world. This has made you resilient but also reckless. The Outer Reach is dangerous. We cannot allow you to risk yourselves unnecessarily. Cannot allow? Lyra's voice sharpened. Are you saying we need your permission? We are saying we care for your welfare. In 3,000 years, we have guided 47 species to prosperity. None have regretted accepting our wisdom. And how many refused? The chamber went silent. Thelma studied her for a long moment. None, because refusal would be foolish. We offer protection, technology, peace. We ask only that young species accept our guidance until they mature. Lyra connected to David through her earpiece. You hearing this? Every word, he replied. They're not asking, Lyra, they're telling. She turned back to Thelmus. High Arbiter, Earth appreciates your concern. But we didn't come to the stars to be children. We came as equals. Another murmur, this one louder. Several beings made gestures that Lyra's translator couldn't interpret, but the meaning felt clear. Shock, perhaps even offense. Thelmus descended from his platform, floating closer to her. Up close she could see that his eyes held genuine sadness. Ambassador, please understand. We have seen species like yours before. Aggressive, expansionist, unwilling to listen. They always hurt themselves. They always need correction. We do not wish this for humanity. Correction? Lyra felt ice in her stomach. What does that mean? It means we will dismantle your colonies in the Outer Reach, peacefully. We will relocate your people to safer worlds under our supervision. You have 60 days to begin evacuations. This is not negotiable. This is for your own good. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species applauded. Others looked uncertain. Lyra stood frozen, unable to believe what she'd just heard. Her earpiece crackled. David's voice came through hard and cold. Lyra, get back to Earth, now. If they want our colonies, they'll have to take them by force. And they're going to learn something about Deathworlders. Thelmus watched the human ambassador leave, her posture stiff with anger. He felt genuine regret. Humans reminded him of the Vorkesh, a species the Ascendants had corrected 2,000 years ago. They'd been warriors too, proud and stubborn. Now they were peaceful, grateful members of the community. They'd even thank the Ascendants for saving them from themselves. Humans would thank them too eventually. They just needed to learn their place first. It was a kindness, really. Thelmus had been doing this for 800 years. He knew how these things went. He had no idea how wrong he was. Governor Owen Drake had lived on New Vancouver for 8 years. He'd watched his daughter take her first steps on soil that wasn't Earth, under a sky that glowed purple at sunset. The colony had 3,000 people, a hydroponics facility that could feed 10,000, and a stubborn determination to succeed where others said success was impossible. The planet's gravity was 1.4 times Earth normal. The temperature swung 40 degrees between day and night. Storms rolled across the plains with winds that could strip paint from metal. The colonists loved it. Governor, they're here. Sarah Mills, the colony's defense captain, pointed to the sky. 17 ships hung in orbit, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They gleamed silver in the light of New Vancouver's harsh sun. Owen pulled up the comm channel. A calm voice spoke in perfect English. New Vancouver Colony, this is Enforcement Fleet 7 of the Ascendant Guidance Authority. We are here to assist with your relocation to safer worlds. Please prepare for peaceful evacuation. You have 48 hours. Sarah looked at Owen. Orders, sir? Tell them no, she blinked. Just no. Just no. Sarah opened the channel. Enforcement Fleet 7, this is Captain Sarah Mills. New Vancouver declines your offer. We're staying. Please leave our space. There was a long pause. When the voice returned, it sounded confused. Captain, perhaps you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The Ascendants have determined this world is unsafe for your species. We are here to help you. We don't need help. We're fine. Another pause, longer this time. Captain, in 3,000 years of corrections, no species has ever refused evacuation. You must comply. Owen took the comm. This is Governor Owen Drake. Let me be clear. We built this colony with our hands. We've survived earthquakes, floods, and storms that would terrify your people. We're not leaving because you think you know what's best for us. This is our home. Come down here and try to move us, and you'll understand why Earth is called a death world. The channel went silent. 17 ships continued their orbit unmoving. Sarah turned to Owen. You think they'll actually try? They've never been told no before. They don't know what to do with it. 47 hours later, the Ascendants made their move. Beams of blue light swept across the colony, and every electronic system died. Power plants went dark. Vehicles stopped. Communication arrays fell silent. The colonists found themselves in complete technological blackout. A broadcast played through emergency speakers that ran on backup batteries. New Vancouver residents, we have disabled your systems for your safety. Please gather in the central plaza. Transport ships will arrive shortly. Do not be alarmed. This is a peaceful relocation. Owen stood in the dark command center and smiled. Sarah, tell the others. It's time. What the Ascendants didn't know was that New Vancouver had backup plans. The colonists had suspected something like this might happen. They'd spent months digging tunnels beneath the colony, stockpiling supplies, creating a network of passages that connected every building to the underground shelters. They'd trained for this scenario. They'd prepared. The Ascendants landed their transport ships in neat rows near the plaza. Soldiers emerged, wearing armor that seemed to flow like liquid. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, but looked designed more for stunning than killing. They moved with the confidence of beings who had done this 100 times before. The plaza was empty. Commander Venrock, leading the ground operation, felt his first stirring of unease. His scanner showed life signs throughout the colony, but no one was visible. Residents of New Vancouver, please reveal yourselves. We mean no harm. This is for your protection. The explosion came from beneath his feet, not large enough to kill but powerful enough to send 3 soldiers flying. Then another explosion and another. The neat rows of transport ships suddenly found themselves under attack from enemies they couldn't see. Sarah and her militia fighters moved through the tunnels like ghosts. They'd pop up through hidden entrances, fire improvised explosives or conventional weapons, then disappear before the ascendants could respond. It was chaos. It was unfair. It was working. Venrock had never experienced anything like it. His training covered honorable combat between organized forces. This was something different. This was guerrilla warfare, and his people had no defense against it. "Pull back to the ships," he ordered. "Seal the entrances!" But the colonists had planned for that too. As the ascendants retreated, shaped charges detonated against the transport ship's landing gear. 2 ships toppled over. One exploded as its fuel cells ruptured. The ascendants suddenly found themselves stranded under attack and completely out of their depth. In orbit, Fleet Commander Talvin watched in disbelief. This is impossible. They're civilians, farmers and scientists. How are they fighting trained soldiers? His sensor officer looked up, face pale. "Commander, I'm detecting incoming ships. Human military vessels, 14 of them. Admiral James Park arrived with Earth's 3rd Fleet 12 hours ahead of schedule. His ships were smaller than the Ascendant's vessels, newer, built with human engineering that prioritized function over elegance. They accelerated into attack position without bothering with communication protocols." Talvin opened a channel. "Human fleet, stand down. This is a peaceful correction operation." Park's response was simple. "Get away from my people or I'll blow you out of the sky." "Admiral, we do not wish to fight. We are simply following protocol. Your protocol ends now. Leave or I start shooting." Talvin had fought in 3 skirmishes during his career, all of them carefully orchestrated affairs with rules of engagement and limited objectives. He'd never faced an enemy willing to die to protect a single colony. He looked at his tactical display. The human ships were positioning themselves for a close-range brawl, ignoring their own safety to get better firing angles. These humans were insane. "Fleet, withdraw," Talvin ordered. "We're returning to base." As the Ascendant ships retreated, Owen Drake emerged from the tunnels and watched them go. His daughter ran to him, hugging his leg. Around him, colonists cheered. They'd won. They'd actually won. Sarah stood beside him, covered in dirt and sweat. "They'll be back, won't they?" "Probably. But now they know something they didn't before." "What's that?" "That we bite back." In his command ship retreating through the void, Venrock wrote his report with shaking hands. He'd lost 12 soldiers, not to death, but to injuries from explosives and projectile weapons. Primitive, brutal, effective. He'd lost 3 ships. And he'd lost something more important. The certainty that corrections were easy. The humans didn't fight like any species he'd encountered. They fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. They fought like the world itself had trained them for war. He ended his report with a recommendation that would shake the Ascendant Council. Humanity requires more than correction. They require containment. Before they teach the galaxy their ways, it was already too late for that. Dr. Rachel Kim had spent 15 years studying alien biology. She'd examined species from 40 different worlds, cataloged their evolutionary paths, understood their survival mechanisms. Now she stood before the Galactic Council, about to deliver the most important presentation of her life. The council chamber held representatives from 200 species. Most of them looked at her with curiosity or mild interest. A few looked at her with something that might have been pity. They thought they understood humanity. They thought the New Vancouver incident was an anomaly, a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with time and patience. Rachel was about to shatter that illusion. "Honored members," she began, "I want to tell you about Earth. Not the Earth you've seen in our tourism broadcasts or diplomatic packages. The real Earth, the Earth that made us." She activated the holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. It looked beautiful from space, blue and green and peaceful. Gravity 1.0 standard. You might think that's average. It's not. It's the high end of habitable. Most species here evolved under 0.7 to 0.8 gravity. Our children grow up lifting more weight than your athletes train with. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Rachel continued. Temperature range -60 to +60 Celsius in habitable zones. Atmospheric pressure varies by 30% depending on altitude and weather. Weather patterns include hurricanes with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can shred buildings, and lightning storms that strike the ground 8 million times per day. The display shifted to show various Earth disasters: earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, forest fires that consumed entire regions. Earth's crust is unstable. Tectonic plates shift constantly. Cities fall into the ocean. Mountains rise overnight. We learned to build knowing everything might collapse tomorrow. Quintar, the bird-like senator, stood up. Dr. Kim, what is your point? So your world is harsh. Many species faced challenges during their evolution. Rachel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Senator, how many predator species existed on your homeworld when your ancestors achieved sentience? Predators? Perhaps 3 or 4. They kept our population in check until we learned to defend ourselves. Earth has over 70 large predator species currently alive. When humans evolved, we shared our environment with cave bears, saber-toothed cats, giant wolves, crocodiles that weighed a ton, and dozens of other animals that saw us as food. We didn't have claws. We didn't have armor. We didn't have venom. We survived by being smarter, more aggressive, and more determined than anything trying to eat us. The display showed images of ancient cave paintings, humans hunting mammoth creatures. Then modern images of humans in extreme environments, surviving in deserts, jungles, Arctic wastes. We are pursuit predators. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run for days. We can track wounded animals across continents. We don't give up. That's not a cultural trait. That's biology. That's what Earth made us. Thelmus floated forward. Dr. Kim, this presentation is fascinating, but it doesn't change our position. Your people need guidance precisely because of this harsh background. You're traumatized by your evolution. Let us help you heal. Rachel laughed, and the sound was bitter. You think we're broken? High Arbiter, we're not traumatized. We're adapted. Every instinct you think we need to overcome is an instinct that kept our species alive for 3 million years. You want us to abandon the very traits that made us successful. Success at what cost? Thelmus spread his 4 arms. How many humans die in accidents each year? How many suffer injuries that would be impossible on civilized worlds? Your death rate from natural causes is triple the galactic average. And our survival rate in hostile environments is 10 times the galactic average. We pay for our strength with risk. We accept that trade. Grand Marshal Venrock entered the chamber, his presence commanding immediate attention. He'd led the failed operation at New Vancouver. His armor still bore scorch marks from the fighting. The Council should know, Venrock said, his voice hard, that I have reviewed Earth's military history. In the past 5,000 years, humans have fought approximately 14,000 wars. They have developed over 900 types of weapons, many of them designed specifically to maximize suffering. They have created poisons that can kill millions, weapons that can sterilize entire planets, tactics that target civilian populations. This is not a species that needs guidance. This is a species that needs containment. Ambassador Lyra Okoye rose from her seat. Marshal, you researched our history? Then you know we also created medicine, art, music, and philosophy while fighting those wars. You know we've had a global peace for 70 years now. You know we've grown beyond our violent past, have you? Venrock pulled up new images. These are reports from New Vancouver. Your civilians, people you claim are farmers and scientists, ambushed trained soldiers using improvised explosives and trap tactics. They fought like guerrillas, like terrorists. Is this your idea of peaceful evolution? They fought like people defending their homes, Lyra shot back. What did you expect? That they'd thank you for forcing them to leave? Thelmus raised a hand for silence. Enough. The Council will deliberate. He turned to face the Assembly. 3 million years ago, the Ascendants achieved unity. We eliminated war, poverty, and suffering. We spread this gift to every species we encountered. Some resisted at first, but they all eventually understood. They all thanked us. The Vorkesh were warriors like humans. Now they are poets and philosophers. The Tikal were aggressive expansionists. Now they are peaceful traders. We can help humanity too, but we must act decisively. You mean attack us, David Walsh said. He'd entered the chamber without anyone noticing, wearing his Earth Defense uniform. Several guards moved to intercept him, but Thelmus waved them off. Commander Walsh, you were not invited to this session. No, I wasn't. But I needed to hear what you plan to do, so let me save you some time. David walked to the center of the chamber, looking up at the assembled species. You want to correct us. You want to invade our colonies, occupy our worlds, force us to live by your rules. You think you're doing us a favor. You're not. You're declaring war. And if you do that, you're going to learn exactly what a Deathworld species is capable of. Venrock stepped forward. Commander, your posturing is meaningless. We have fleets that outnumber yours 50 to 1. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have been maintaining peace for 3,000 years. Your species has been in space for 15. You cannot win. David smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. Marshal, you're absolutely right. We can't win, but we can make you bleed. We can make you suffer. We can make you regret ever threatening us. And we will. Because that's what we do. That's what Earth made us. The chamber fell silent. Thelma studied the human commander for a long moment. You would fight even knowing you will lose? We'd fight especially knowing we'll lose. That's when we're most dangerous. Thelmus felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. He looked at the council members, saw their confident faces, their certainty that the Ascendants could solve this problem as they'd solved all others. But he'd heard something in the human's voice that worried him. Not fear, not bravado. Just simple, terrible honesty. The council will vote, Thelmus announced. But I already know the outcome. Humanity, you have 1 week to accept our terms. Place your colonies and military under Ascendant supervision. Accept our guidance, or face correction by force. This is your final warning. Lyra looked at David. He shook his head slightly. She turned back to Thelmus. Then there will be war. The Armada entered human space like a tide of silver stars. 200 Ascendant warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering accumulated over millennia. Their shields could withstand nuclear blasts. Their weapons could vaporize asteroids. Their crews had trained for centuries in the art of warfare as the Ascendants understood it. Precise, controlled, designed to minimize casualties while demonstrating overwhelming superiority. Fleet Commander Talvin reviewed the battle plan with confidence. They would disable human communication networks first, then systematically neutralize military installations. Once humanity saw resistance was futile, they would negotiate surrender. Casualties would be minimal. The whole operation might take 3 weeks. Then the real work would begin, teaching these impulsive children how civilized beings behaved. The first human response came 18 hours into the invasion. A transport ship traveling between Ascendant fleet groups suddenly exploded. Not from weapons fire. It had been struck by a small vessel moving at 90% light speed. The kinetic impact released energy equivalent to a fusion bomb. Talvin stared at the debris field in horror. Did they just ram us with a ship? His tactical officer checked the data. The vessel was unmanned, Commander. A cargo hauler, retrofitted with a basic guidance system and all safety limiters removed. They turned it into a missile. That's insane. The cost alone. Humans don't seem to care about cost. Over the next 2 days, 6 more Ascendant ships fell to relativistic projectiles. Simple human vessels stripped of everything except engines and basic navigation, accelerated to impossible speeds, aimed at Ascendant formations. No shields could stop that kind of kinetic energy. The Ascendants were forced to spread their fleet across a wider area, reducing their effective concentration. Admiral James Park watched the tactical display from Earth Command. They're adapting. Good. That means they're thinking. His second officer, a young woman named Chen, looked uncomfortable. Admiral, we've expended 12 ships for 6 kills. That's not a favorable ratio. It's not about ratios. It's about making them afraid. Every formation they group, we hit with a ram. Every supply line they establish, we target with suicide drones. We can't beat them in a straight fight, so we don't fight straight. Sir, this violates every rule of warfare in the Galactic Conventions. Park looked at her coldly. The conventions written by the Ascendants? The rules designed to make sure nobody can effectively resist them? Chen, there are no rules in survival. There's only winning and dying. The Ascendants pushed deeper into human space, taking the colony world of New Mars. The human defenders fought from underground bunkers, emerging to attack supply convoys before disappearing again. When the Ascendants finally secured the surface, they found the civilians had evacuated through tunnel networks that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They'd taken everything of value and left behind booby traps. Benrock walked through the empty capital city, his security team sweeping for explosives. This is madness. They abandoned a thriving city, rather than let us occupy it peacefully. His aide checked a data pad. Sir, intelligence reports that the evacuees have relocated to a mining facility in the asteroid belt. They're continuing operations from there. In an asteroid belt, those facilities weren't designed for long-term habitation. Humans are adapting the structures. They're treating it like another colony. Venrock sat on a bench in what had been a park, now empty and silent. They're teaching other species to resist. I've received reports from 17 subject worlds asking questions about independence. The humans are spreading weapons and tactics to anyone willing to fight us. Lieutenant Chris Novak led his bomber wing through the void between stars, hunting for ascendant supply vessels. His squadron consisted of 12 light craft, each one carrying munitions that the Galactic conventions had banned 2,000 years ago. Biological weapons, nanotech warheads, AI-guided hunter-killers that could pursue targets through hyperspace. His comm crackled. Flight leader, I'm showing civilian traffic ahead. Ascendant medical ship. Chris checked his display. The medical ship was carrying supplies to support occupation forces on New Mars. Medical supplies, food, water purification systems. Taking it out would hurt the Ascendants' ability to maintain their presence. Light it up, he ordered. Sir, it's a medical ship. Regulations. There are no regulations anymore. They invaded us. Every ship in their fleet is a target. Fire. The missiles streaked through space. The medical ship's shields, designed for asteroid deflection rather than warfare, collapsed under the assault. The ship vented atmosphere and drifted, crippled but not destroyed. Chris didn't bother finishing it. Let the Ascendants waste resources on rescue and recovery. His wingman's voice came through, shaking. That felt wrong, sir. War is wrong. They started it. We're finishing it. Back at Lumina Prime, the Ascendant homeworld, protests erupted for the first time in 800 years. Casualty reports scrolled across public displays. 3,000 dead. 15,000 wounded. Ships destroyed, not by superior technology but by primitive weapons and suicidal tactics. The population had never seen losses like this. They'd been told the correction would be quick and painless. Thelmus addressed the council, his forearms trembling with emotion. We must escalate. Deploy the Guardian fleets. Bring the full force of our military to bear. Show the humans that resistance is futile. An elderly counselor, her scales white with age, spoke up. High Arbiter, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans are not like the Vorkesh or the Tikal. They're not seeking to conquer. They simply want to be left alone, and we cannot allow that. If we let them defy us, every other species will think they can do the same. The order we've maintained for 3 millennia will collapse. So we trade that order for a war we cannot cleanly win? Thelma slammed one hand on his podium. We will win because we must. Because the alternative is chaos. The Guardian fleets deployed 2 months into the war. These were the ancient vessels, crewed by warriors who had served for centuries, equipped with weapons that had ended rebellions before humans existed. They moved toward the human core worlds with terrible purpose. Admiral Park received the intelligence report and smiled grimly. They're committing everything good. They're fighting angry now, not smart. Chen frowned. Sir, the Guardian fleets outnumber our entire navy. If they reach Earth, they won't because we're not going to defend Earth. Sir, we're going to attack Lumina Prime. The command center fell silent. Chen's face went pale. That's their homeworld. They'll never expect it. They'll call it terrorism. They'll call it whatever they want. But while their best fleets are pushing toward our core, we're going to hit them where they've never been hit. We're going to show them that nobody is safe. Not even them. 3 weeks later, human strike forces emerged from hyperspace near Lumina Prime. Not a full invasion force, just enough ships to cause panic. They fired on orbital stations, destroyed communications arrays, and launched kinetic projectiles toward the planet's surface. The weapons were targeted at uninhabited areas, but the message was clear. We can reach you. The Ascendants had lived in perfect peace for 3,000 years. Their homeworld had never been threatened. Now they watched their sky burn and felt something they'd forgotten existed. Fear. Thelmus watched the attacks from his office, his hands shaking. He'd thought he understood humans. He'd thought they were like every other young species in need of guidance and discipline. He'd been wrong. These weren't children. These were predators. And he'd just made them desperate. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The Ascendants no longer believed they could win without paying a terrible price, and the humans had proven they were willing to pay any price at all. Hope's End earned its name during the war. The planet sat at the edge of human space, a world of jagged mountains and deep valleys where colonists had carved out a life in conditions that would kill most galactic species. When the Ascendants decided to make an example of it, they sent their best, the Guardian Elite, warriors who had trained for 2 centuries, equipped with weapons that could level cities. They expected to overwhelm the defenders in days. They were wrong. Captain Sarah Mills, promoted after her actions at New Vancouver, commanded the defense. She had 4,000 soldiers, most of them colonists who'd learned to fight during the war. Against her stood 20,000 Ascendant warriors with air support, artillery, and overwhelming technological advantage. The battle began at dawn. Ascendant dropships descended through the purple sky, landing in precise formations across the valley floor. Their troops deployed with textbook efficiency, establishing perimeter defenses and forward operating bases, everything according to plan. Then the mountains started shooting back. Sarah had spent 3 months fortifying Hope's End, not just bunkers and trenches. She'd turned the entire mountain range into a weapon. Artillery hidden in caves, railguns mounted in valleys, sniper positions on every peak. The colonists knew every trail, every ridge, every place where the wind blew hardest and sight lines were clearest. The Ascendants advanced uphill against an enemy they couldn't see. Every step cost them. Every position they took they paid for in blood. Grand Marshal Venrock watched from his command ship in orbit, frustrated beyond measure. They're using the terrain like it's part of their army. How do they move so freely in that gravity? Those slopes would exhaust our troops in hours. His tactical officer pulled up data. The human colonists have been living here for 6 years. They're acclimated. Our troops are struggling with the elevation and gravity. Recommendation: orbital bombardment to clear the mountain positions. No. The Council wants prisoners. They want to demonstrate we can take human territory and hold it. Bombardment proves nothing. Venrock clenched his manipulators. Send in the second wave. Concentrate forces at Grid 7. Break through their center. The second wave landed and pushed hard toward the main defensive line. For 2 days they made progress, taking bunker after bunker. Then they reached the pass Sarah had chosen as her kill zone. The pass was narrow, overlooked by cliffs on both sides. The Ascendants knew it was a trap but had no choice. It was the only route to the human command center. They advanced cautiously, scanning for ambushes. The humans hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. Artillery from the mountains, heavy weapons from concealed positions in the pass walls, and most devastating, avalanches triggered by carefully placed explosives. Tons of rock crashed down on the Ascendant formation, burying soldiers and equipment under debris. The Ascendants retreated, regrouped, and tried again. And again. Each assault cost them hundreds of casualties. Each retreat was harassed by human rangers who appeared from nowhere, struck hard and vanished into the rocks. Lieutenant Chris Novak, now leading ground operations after his fighter was shot down, coordinated hit-and-run attacks against Ascendant supply lines. His team was 12 people. They destroyed enough equipment to supply a battalion. On the 18th day, Venrock committed the Guardian Elite's reserve forces. Every available soldier, every vehicle, every weapon system. They would take the pass regardless of cost. The assault lasted 14 hours. The fighting was brutal. Close-quarters combat in conditions that favored neither side. Sarah's regiment held the pass. 200 humans against 3,000 Ascendants. They ran out of ammunition and fought with improvised weapons. They ran out of those and fought with rocks in their bare hands. When the Ascendants finally overran the position, they found themselves standing among bodies, both human and Ascendant, scattered across ground that had become mud with blood. Venrock walked through the aftermath, his armor stained and damaged. He'd never seen anything like it. The humans had fought with a ferocity that defied logic. They'd known they would die. They'd fought anyway. He found Sarah among the wounded, her leg crushed beneath rubble. She was still conscious, still defiant. "You held us here for 3 weeks," Venrock said quietly. "Why, you had no chance of victory." Sarah coughed, tasting blood. "Didn't need victory. Just needed to make you pay for every meter. How many of your soldiers died today, Marshal?" Venrock didn't answer. The casualty reports were still coming in, but preliminary numbers showed over 4,000 dead or wounded. "Against 200 defenders. We're willing to die for what we believe in," Sarah continued. "Are you?" The words haunted Venrock as he ordered the occupation of Hope's End. His troops found the colony abandoned, the civilians evacuated through tunnel networks that stretched hundreds of kilometers. They'd taken everything of value. They'd left behind a ghost town and more booby traps. Reports flooded in from across Ascendant space. Human strike teams were hitting logistics centers, command posts, and industrial facilities deep in Ascendant territory. They were training insurgents on occupied worlds. They were spreading tactics and weapons to any species willing to resist. The carefully ordered galaxy that the Ascendants had built was fracturing. On Lumina Prime, the protests grew larger. Citizens demanded to know why the correction was taking so long. Why were so many of their children dying? The Council had promised this would be quick and painless. 4 months into the war, the Ascendants had lost 40% of their fleet, 30,000 soldiers dead. Economic disruption spreading through their trade networks as other species watched and calculated their own chances of independence. Thelmus met with his senior counselors in a sealed chamber. Outside, protesters chanted for peace. Inside, military commanders presented increasingly desperate strategies. "We can win," insisted General Cortan, his scales flushed with aggression. "Deploy biological weapons. Target Earth directly. Force them to surrender or watch their homeworld die." "That would make us monsters," Thelmus replied. "Everything we've built is based on civilized behavior. If we abandon that, what are we?" "Survivors," Cortan snapped. "High Arbiter, with respect, our civilization has never faced an existential threat. The humans are teaching the galaxy that we can be resisted. If we don't crush them completely, we'll face rebellions for the next 1,000 years." An aide entered the chamber, his expression grave. "High Arbiter, I have a message from Admiral Park. He says it's urgent." Thelmus activated the display. Park's face appeared, haggard but unbowed. "High Arbiter, I'm sending this message to inform you that human forces are currently positioning strike assets throughout your empire. We have relativistic weapons aimed at 17 major population centers. We have agents on 43 Ascendant worlds. We have enough firepower to kill billions before you can stop us." The room fell silent. Cortan started to speak, but Thelmus raised a hand. Park continued. "I'm not telling you this as a threat. I'm telling you as a fact. You wanted to correct us. You wanted to teach us our place. Instead, you've turned us into exactly what you feared. We're not the naive children you thought we were. We're survivors, and we've survived by being willing to do what others won't." "Is this a surrender demand?" Thelmus asked quietly. "No, it's an offer to negotiate. Real negotiation. Not the kind where you dictate terms. You can keep fighting and we'll keep bleeding you until one of us breaks. Or we can end this and find a way to coexist. Your choice." The transmission ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, an elderly counselor spoke, her voice soft with exhaustion. "Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps guidance cannot be forced on those who don't want it." Thelmus looked at her, then at the others. He saw doubt in their eyes, fear, uncertainty, emotions his people hadn't experienced in millennia. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he said. "Tell them we're willing to talk." The neutral station sanctuary had hosted peace negotiations for 2,000 years. Built by an ancient species long extinct, it orbited a stable star equidistant from major powers. Its halls had seen the end of countless wars, always following the same pattern. The stronger party dictated terms, the weaker accepted them, and peace returned. This negotiation would be different. Admiral James Park arrived first, his delegation small and efficient. 5 people, including Ambassador Lyra Okoye and Dr. Rachel Kim. No ceremony, no grand entrance. They walked through the station's corridors like they owned them, which in a sense they did. They'd paid for every meter in blood. High Arbiter Thelmus arrived with a delegation of 40, including military commanders, legal experts, and historians. He expected to find humans eager to end the war, grateful for the opportunity to surrender with honor. Instead, he found Park sitting at the negotiation table reviewing a datapad, looking bored. "Admiral," Thelmus began, his 4 arms spread in traditional greeting. "I'm pleased we can finally discuss peace." Park looked up. "We're not here to discuss. We're here to present terms. You can accept them or go home and keep fighting." The Ascendant delegation murmured in shock. Thelmus felt his composure crack slightly. "Admiral, surely you understand the position you're in. Your losses are acceptable. We planned for them." "Did you plan for yours?" Park activated the holographic display. Casualty figures appeared, stark and brutal. "You've lost 43% of your fleet. Your economy is contracting. 17 subject species are in open rebellion. Your citizens are protesting in streets that haven't seen protests in 3,000 years. You came here because you're losing. Don't pretend otherwise." Thelmus seated himself, his movements no longer graceful but heavy. "What are your terms?" Complete withdrawal from all human space, including the outer reach. No restrictions on where humans can colonize or explore. Reparations for damages to be paid over 20 years. And most important, the Galactic Council will be reformed as a democratic body with equal representation for all species, not an ascendant protectorate. The ascendant military commanders erupted in protest. General Corton rose from his seat. This is absurd. You're demanding we dismantle our entire system of governance because you won a few battles? Park smiled coldly. We didn't win battles. We won the war. You just haven't admitted it yet. Lyra took over, her voice more diplomatic but equally firm. High Arbiter, the galaxy has changed. You ruled for 3 million years because nobody could resist you effectively. Now someone has. Other species are watching. If you crush us, you'll face this same resistance from 100 others. If you negotiate fairly, you can transition from empire to partnership. Partnership? Thelma shook his head. We guided species to prosperity. We prevented wars. We built civilization itself. You built a dictatorship, Dr. Rachel Kim interjected. A benevolent one, maybe. But you never gave anyone a choice. That ends now. Thelmus looked at the human delegation, trying to understand how events had spiraled so far from his intentions. He'd wanted to help them, to save them from themselves. Instead, they'd nearly destroyed everything he'd spent 800 years building. If we accept these terms, he said slowly, the Ascendants will no longer lead the galaxy. Other species will make mistakes. Wars will happen. Suffering will increase. Maybe, Park agreed, but it'll be their choice. Their mistakes. Their growth. You can't keep the galaxy in a cage and call it protection. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Ascendants fought for every concession, trying to maintain some shred of their authority. The humans remained immovable. They'd suffered too much, lost too many people to accept anything less than complete autonomy. On the final day, Thelma sat alone with Lyra in a quiet observation room overlooking the stars. He looked old, his skin paler than before, his movements tired. I truly believed we were helping you, he said softly. Every species we guided thanked us eventually. The Vorkesh, the Takal, dozens of others. They all became peaceful, prosperous. Why are humans different? Lyra chose her words carefully. Because we didn't ask for your help. Because you assumed we needed saving without asking what we wanted. High Arbiter, your intentions were good, but you never considered that maybe, just maybe, species should be allowed to choose their own path, even if it's harder, even if they make mistakes. And if those mistakes lead to self-destruction, then that's their right. Freedom means nothing if it doesn't include the freedom to fail. Thelmus was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. How did you know you could win? Your military was smaller, your technology inferior. By all logical calculations, you should have lost. We didn't know we could win, but we knew we couldn't lose. That doesn't make sense, Lyra smiled. It does if you understand Deathworlders. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about refusing to give up, about being willing to pay any price to remain free. You couldn't beat that because you've never had to develop it. The final treaty was signed on the 4th day. The Ascendants agreed to all human demands. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Subject species erupted in celebration. The carefully ordered structure of galactic governance began its transformation from empire to democracy. 5 years later, Ambassador Lyra Okoye walked through the reformed Galactic Assembly. The chamber looked different now. Instead of the Ascendants floating above everyone, all species sat at the same level. Decisions were made by vote, not decree. It was messy, argumentative, and chaotic. It was also free. Thelmus approached her, moving slower than before. He'd aged visibly in 5 years. The stress of transition had worn him down. Ambassador Okoye, I wanted to thank you. Lyra raised an eyebrow. For what? Forcing you to give up power? For teaching us humility. For showing us that strength without consent is tyranny, no matter how benevolent. He gestured to the chaotic assembly. This is harder than our old system. Decisions take longer. Arguments are endless, but I'm beginning to understand why it's better. Because it's theirs, Lyra said. Every species here owns their future now. They're not following someone else's plan. The Vorkesh petitioned to leave our supervision last month. They're establishing their own military. They may make mistakes, and they probably will, but they'll learn from them. That's how you grow. Thelmus nodded slowly. And humans? What will you do now that you've claimed your independence? Lyra smiled, looking toward a viewport showing the stars beyond. What we've always done: explore, expand, survive. There are worlds out there that would kill most species. We're going to make them home. You're going to keep pushing into dangerous territory. Of course, that's what Deathworlders do. Thelmus watched her go, then turned back to the assembly. A debate was raging about trade regulations, with 12 species arguing simultaneously. It was undignified, inefficient, democratic. He found himself smiling. For the first time in 800 years, he didn't know exactly what would happen next. It was terrifying. It was also liberating. Later that week, new human colony ships departed for the frontier. They were heading to worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and deadly weather patterns. Worlds that other species had marked as uninhabitable. The colonists sang as they prepared for the journey. They were going to places that would try to kill them. They were going to survive anyway. They were going to thrive, because that's what humans did. That's what Earth had made them. Survivors who refused to quit. Deathworlders who turned the impossible into home. The galaxy had learned its lesson. You could negotiate with humans. You could trade with them. You could befriend them. But you could never ever make them submit. They'd rather declare war than plead for peace they hadn't chosen. They'd rather fight impossible odds than live under someone else's protection. They'd rather die free than live as subjects. The proud aliens had pleaded for peace at the end. They'd offered compromise, then concessions, then surrender. They'd learned what happens when you try to cage a species born on a world where everything is a fight. The Deathworlders had declared war, and in doing so they'd remade the galaxy.